Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and this is day 7 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be mackerel, and today is a chest training day. And right now, I'm going to be taking you through the strength training anatomy of which muscles are involved for each of the chest exercises. Now let's get started. And now it is time for the main portion of the chest workout. And for the first exercise, we want to pick an exercise that is going to focus on horizontal adduction of the glenohumeral joint. For me, I'm going to be doing the flat bench press. And while we've got the time, we're going to go over a little bit more shoulder anatomy. So, what exactly are we training? Well, even though we are not technically training the muscles in the back, we are going to be using them to stabilize the scapular girdle. So when we are doing scapular retraction, that is primarily going to be your rhomboids major and minor, as well as the middle fibers of the trapezius. You still get the superior and inferior fibers, but the middle trapezius is involved mostly with retraction of the scapula. And then for scapular depression, that is going to be the inferior fibers of the trapezius, so the latissimus dorsi, the pectoralis major, and the inferior fibers of the stratus anterior. Moving distal from the shoulders, from the scapular girdle, we have the glenohumeral joint. That the glenohumeral joint, because we are doing horizontal adduction, we are primarily going to be training the pectoralis major, the anterior deltoid, and the coracobrachialis. For the anterior deltoid, we have two fibers. We have the sternal fibers and we have the clavicular fibers. Because we are doing horizontal adduction, we're primarily going to be focusing on the horizontal sternal attachment. And at the elbow joint, we are going to be training elbow extension. So when we do elbow extension, that is primarily going to be the triceps brachii group. So we are going to be training all three heads. We are going to be training the medial head, the long head, and also we're going to be training the lateral head. And to some extent, we are also going to be training the anconeus, because the anconeus muscle, it does assist a little bit in stabilization and elbow extension. But rest is up. Time for set number 1. In 3, 2, 1, down, 2, 3, hold, 1, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 2, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 3, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 4, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 5, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 6, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 7, hold, last one, 2, 3, hold, 8, hold, and rest. And while we are resting, let's talk about the second exercise for myself. Again, we are going to be picking some type of exercise that is going to emphasize horizontal adduction of the humerus. Or if you ended up picking something like the flat bench, then you would just change the inclination and do something like a decline or an incline. You want to avoid overhead pressing, because we're going to do that on shoulder day. But for myself, I am going to be doing an incline dumbbell press, and I'm going to be getting a nice deep stretch. And my goal when I do it is I want the top of the dumbbell to make contact with the top of my chest. So I want to get a nice deep stretch in that bottom position. As with the flat bench press, when we are performing any type of bench pressing, it's going to benefit us to stabilize the scapula by retracting and depressing the scapula. So you want to get a little bit of an arch, nothing crazy, and you really want to squeeze those shoulder blades down and together. When we are doing scapular retraction and depression, at the scapulocostal joint for scapular retraction, that is primarily going to be the rhomboids major and minor, and also the middle fibers of the trapezius. To a lesser extent, we are still getting the superior and inferior fibers of the trapezius, but the middle fibers of the trapezius is really what's going to be heavily involved in scapular retraction. And then for scapular depression, that is primarily going to be the inferior fibers of the trapezius, the latissimus dorsi, the pectoralis minor, and the inferior fibers of the serratus anterior. And then moving distally from there at the glenohumeral joint, because we are doing horizontal adduction, that is primarily going to be the pectoralis major, the anterior deltoid, and the coracobrachialis. For horizontal adduction, with regard to the pectoralis major, I mentioned earlier, but we have two different attachments. We have the sternal attachment that runs horizontally, and then we have the clavicular attachment, which is on an oblique angle. So because we're doing horizontal adduction, we're going to be training both, but primarily we are going to be focusing on the sternal attachment. And then if we move distally from there at the elbow joint, we are focusing on elbow extension. When we are doing elbow extension, that's primarily going to be the triceps group, and we're training all three heads, the medial, the long head, and the lateral head of the triceps, as well as the anconeus, because the anconeus, it does act as an elbow stabilizer and it does assist slightly in elbow extension. But time is up. Set number one. In 3, 2, 1, down, 2, 3, hold, 1, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 2, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 3, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 4, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 5, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 6, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 7, hold, last one, 2, 3, hold, 8, hold, and rest. And while we are resting, let's discuss which exercise we are going to select for chest exercise number 3. For this exercise, we want to pick an exercise that is going to focus on shoulder flexion. So the elbows, we want them tucked in. For myself, I am going to be doing the V-bar dips. And now we are going to move into the anatomy a little bit. So with regard to the anatomy for any type of pressing motion, we're focusing on or on shoulder flexion. First, let's focus on the actual scapulocoastal joint. So because I mentioned at the top, I'm going to be retracting and depressing. For myself, I'm going to be engaging the scapular retractors and depressors. Again, that's going to be the rhomboids major and minor in the middle trapezius. We're also getting the superior and inferior fibers of the trapezius for scapular retraction, but primarily the rhomboids major and minor. For scapular depression, that is going to be the inferior fibers of the trapezius, the latissimus dorsi, the pectoralis minor, and the inferior fibers of the serratus anterior. And then moving over to the glenohumeral joint. At the glenohumeral joint, for this one, we are doing we're doing shoulder flexion. So because we're doing shoulder flexion, we are primarily going to be training the pectoralis major. And for this one, the emphasis is going to be on the clavicular head because, again, we have the sternal attachment that runs horizontally, and then we have the clavicular attachment that runs more obliquely. So for this one right over here, whenever we do flexion, we're engaging a little bit more of that clavicular attachment. And we're also going to be engaging the anterior deltoid, the coracobrachialis, and the long head of the biceps brachii. If you guys recall, the biceps brachii, we have the short head that only crosses the elbow and the long head that crosses the elbow and the shoulder. So because the long head of the biceps brachii crosses the shoulder, we're also going to be getting some recruitment of there. And then moving down to the elbow, at the elbow, we're doing elbow extension. So because we're doing elbow extension, that is going to be the triceps brachii group. And for the triceps brachii, we're going to be training all three heads, the medial, the long, and the lateral head. And we're also going to be getting a little bit of involvement from the anconeus muscle, which is an elbow stabilizer, and it does assist slightly in elbow extension. But rest is up. Time for set number 1. In 3, 2, 1, down, 2, 3, hold, 1, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 2, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 3, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 4, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 5, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 6, hold, down, 2, 3, hold, 7, hold, last one, 2, 3, hold, 8, hold, and rest. Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. Be sure to like, share, and leave a comment as it'll help the algorithm. And if you enjoyed the content, show your support by subscribing to the channel by clicking on the icon in the bottom right corner. And if you really want to show your support, then consider becoming a member by clicking on the icon in the bottom left corner. These new high-quality videos aren't cheap to edit, and the $5 membership will really help with the video editing budget. You'll also get access to a ton of exclusive perks like early access to videos and this program design lecture playlist in the top right-hand corner. And if you want to learn how to do a one-armed pull-up, then check out the playlist on the top left corner.